let's start with Kittle. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through a few topics and have a discussion. Each person will say what they think, and we can go back and forth. And at the end, we'll take questions from the chat. So, Kittle, who wants to start it off? What do you two started off? What do you think is going on with Kittle?
Go ahead, Leo.
Kittle, what's going on with him is I just think it's the coronavirus, obviously, what's holding it up. I believe it's with York and Prague, what they've shown with the team is when it comes to their own players, they're hard to dish out a penny. When it came to guys that came from other teams, like Garoppolo had, 5 starts, and they dished it out to him pretty quickly.
Interesting.
D Ford came over from the Chiefs. They traded for him and dished it out pretty quickly. Yes, they did pay Armstead, but I'm talking about guys like DeForest Buckner and George Kittle level. They seem to have a little bit of issue once the dollar price is up here.
Right.
And so with the coronavirus affecting the team revenue, regardless of how many fans are going to be in the stands, they're going to miss that revenue. And I think that's what it has to do with it. When I look at George Kittle, I look at what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes. I'm a little bit into analytics. I'm not the hugest into that. I'm not a computer, basically. But I looked at it as the Chiefs paid Patrick Mahomes 28.5% higher than the second highest paid quarterback, which is Russell Wilson. So with the 49ers, they say, okay, Patrick Mahomes made 28.5 more. Kittle, we'll give you 30% or even 40% higher, which beats that percentage that Patrick Mahomes makes. Because to say 20 million a year, that's doubling the market. That's just unrealistic. So I think they will probably settle around that 14.5 mark. But with the revenue that's going on, it seems unsettling of why the 49ers should pay him now when they essentially could tag him for $9 million next year and then $9 million after that.
But then it's also, if you tag him, it's almost of a little bit of a disrespect factor, you know, because people, that's all pretty much like no player likes that franchise tag, even though just look at Washington, what they did with Kirk Cousins and Anthony Harris of the Vikings. I know he's not happy with that, Justin Simmons of the Broncos and such. So if you do that to Kittle, you know, what is that saying to not only him, but to the rest of the team? It's like, hey, all right, hey, buddy, we know we got to pay you, tag. You know, you're locked up with us for a year or so on and so forth, however long we see fit until it reaches a number that we just don't want to agree to anymore. And so you're definitely right, Leo. When we even talked about it like over a month ago on your show, it's just when the future is blurry with the cash revenue, the cash flow and everything. I mean, that's why the NFL owners are going out there and making agreements to get that first 4 or 8 rows, however many rows it is, to get those advertisements. It's how to salvage some of that income. And so had there been maybe more clarity, most likely more traction for a deal was coming. Now, let's look at it from Kittle's side. Obviously, he is more than a tight end. He is more than a wide receiver. He's a hybrid, obviously. He's pretty much an offensive player. You know, he's an offensive player, and he can just do it all from blocking, from being a leader, from being a tremendous wide receiver. So you guys pretty much find like the median point of where you're going to see that break at the bank. And that's how you probably allude to for like at 14.5 million looking around. But it's also, you got to include the guarantees, how many years you're going to sign them for, you know, where the opt-outs, you know, it's a lot more complex than that to some of these other position players where it's just like, all right, you're just this position. Let me just like get you this number. But no, he's a very unique situation because it's like, well, if you pay me higher than a tight end, it's good, but we know I'm more than a tight end, right? It's like with McCaffrey, why some people still like aren't too fond of his deal. He's more than a running back. That guy is a receiver too. So there's a lot of contributing factors here you got to tie into. And once again, the pandemic going on doesn't make it any better.
Right. And you mentioned the franchise tag. That's interesting. It makes me think of D Ford. The Chiefs gave him the franchise tag, and he immediately said, I'm not playing on that. So they traded him. A lot of times, if you give a top-level player the franchise tag, what you're basically telling them is, we're going to trade you in a month. And it's interesting you said like that it would be a slap in the face to Kittle. It's not that easy to just give him the tag. They didn't feel comfortable giving DeForest Buckner the 5th-year option. They could have. They could have had Buckner on the team right now making like $12 million, I think, in 12-ish in 2020, which would be a huge bargain. But it would have really, really upset him. And I think a player understands, like Kittle and Buckner, I can't be mad when I'm still on my rookie deal. I gotta play that out. But if you keep me against my will beyond that, I can be mad. And there's things I can do. So I think that's pretty much where Kittle stands. He kind of has to suck it up for another year. But I'm interested to see what happens next year because I think a lot of people just feel like, well, they're going to tag him. They got him, and they can keep him for cheap. But that's how I felt about Buckner last year. And then they traded him because they wanted to do right by him, or I don't know. So it seems to me that if Kittle holds at whatever number he wants, say it's 16, and the Niners aren't willing to go there, are they going to keep him against his will on the tag, or will they trade him like they traded Buckner? What do you guys think?
I think the Buckner situation is a little different. They could have kept him on the fifth-year option this year.
Right.
But they decided to, you know what, maybe Kinlaw can be Buckner in year 3 or 4, and we have that long-term on a rookie contract rather than Buckner being paid $20 million in, say, what would that be, 2021?
2021, yeah.
Yeah, so let's look at, because I don't see their window as being right now. I see the 49ers window as could be as long as 5, 6, 7 years, because Jimmy Garoppolo for NFL QBH, he's still relatively young, and I think he can grow. So I believe their window is that far ahead to where you lose a player like Javon Kinlaw for 1 year of DeForest Buckner. They decided to go with multiple years of Javon Kinlaw. And with Kittle, he just loves football. That's the hard thing to say, that he won't play on a franchise tag. The guy just loves football. And what I was going to touch on, Jose, is guaranteed money is everything to a lot of players, to the majority of players. But do you see Kittle being a guy that gets cut in a 5-year contract? I don't.
No.
So I don't think the guarantee really matters when it comes to Kittle. I think if you give him maybe you're going to give him the most guaranteed for any tight end, but I don't think he needs to have it fully guaranteed or 14 guaranteed every single season. I think he'll settle for, say, around 8 guaranteed per season, and then on a 16 salary million per year. I think he'll settle on that because, like I said, we all can agree he's not going to get cut in 5 years.
Yeah. No, definitely not. And to actually circle back to a point that Grant talked about is he going to get the DeForest Buckner treatment? I can kind of see that, but the reason why I don't is because I think the 49ers, they look things long terms. At least that's what that's what the crumbs on the table says about all their deals and just most of their moves. They probably envisioned that we have Buckner, we have Kittle. These two are going to break the bank. I believe Kittle is more worth topping out dollar in terms of, his position or whatever they want to do versus Buckner. Buckner, as great of a player he is, and he did get All-Pro, which I thought was a little bit teetering on the fence. He got his All-Pro. If we're picking between which of the two players is more valuable, it's Kittle. So They kind of essentially, how I saw it was, let's side with Kittle. Let's give him the money. We also have Eric Armstead, which didn't make the situation easier for them, which Buckner is the better overall player as Armstead, but the way Armstead's value is, he's versatile. So I guess they just saw him as more of the interchangeable piece, more value, essentially, more bang for their buck. Right. So Kittle's situation, we can talk about like the pandemic's going on the whole time and that situation and everything, but essentially it's just about who they chose, and they chose the Kittle. So I think they're going to commit to him. But how I've also seen about rumors, remember how they wanted to go after Austin Hooper?
Right.
I've seen some of that narrative being driven. What if they were thinking about replacing Kittle? And I don't think that's too far-fetched given the way they handled Buckner's situation either. It's a little hard to really delve into that so much, more speculation, but the way the 49ers front office coaches, they hold their cards very close to the chest.
Right.
It's a little bit hard to tell which direction they were looking at.
Right. So like the same thing could apply. I'm not saying they will, but there's supposed to be a tight end next year coming out of Penn State. I haven't really seen him play much beyond highlights. His name is Pat Fryermuth or something. Yeah. He's supposed to be really good. So maybe the Niners make the same decision that they'd rather have multiple years of this kid for cheap than really expensive years of Kittle. I'm not saying that's the case, but it's possible. The whole Kittle discussion is really heady and interesting because he's arguably a top 5 player in the league, regardless of position. And he's probably going to have to settle for way less than what he's probably worth for a bunch of reasons that are out of his control and aren't really fair. But at the same time, he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid a lot of money, and the George Kittle story will have a very happy ending.